Hi everyone, and Merry Christmas. I wish I was able to visit with all of you in person and give you all a big hug, but that's just not possible, so I thought I'd make this video for you. First off, I'll warn you that if it seems like I'm reading off these papers quite a bit during the video, I'm sorry, but I have a bad memory and only 10 minutes to do this, so I want to make sure I don't forget to say anything important. You'll be able to watch this as many times as you like. It's not quite as good as seeing all of you in person, but it's a lot better than just sending you another photograph, so hopefully you like this. Now, I can't play the guitar, and I sing horribly, so it'll be kind of mean for me to put you through that. So I went with something that I'm a little better at. I wrote a story, and I did all the artwork for the story to go along with it. So I'm going to read the story for this and show you the artwork. I don't know if you can see it very well in the video, but I will be sending it home, so you guys will get that also. I'd like to dedicate the video to my beautiful daughters, Madison, Ashlyn, Brianna, Taylor, Alexis, Dillon, and Caitlin, and also Caitlin's two adorable sons, Daniel and Matthew. Also my mom, dad, brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, and anybody else that ends up watching this video. I love all of you, and I hope you enjoy the story. It was the last day of winter, and Mikey was getting restless. He felt this way because he knew that with the end of winter came the end of his freedom to leave his home, at least for almost another entire year. Why? Because Mikey's a snowman. That's why. That first page's already up. Mikey and his children had just moved into their new home, and while he knew he should be staying inside preparing for the long summer that was quickly approaching, his curiosity was getting the better of him. He really wanted to take this last opportunity to go look around the countryside. "I'm going for a walk, sweetheart," Mikey said to his oldest child. "I shouldn't be gone too long, but please keep an eye on the little one for me, okay?" Mikey walked outside, anxious to be on his way, without any concern for the kids. He knew he wouldn't be gone long, and they would be just fine when he got back. He looked up at the sky and smiled. There were still plenty of clouds blocking the sun, and it was pretty cool out. "This is going to be fun," Mikey said before starting off on his end of the winter adventure. Mikey walked for a very long time. He walked over hills and through trees, turning first this way and then the other. He was able to see lots of neat things that snowmen don't normally get to see. Ponds beginning to thaw out, icicles finally disappearing from the tree branches they've been growing on all winter, and snow melting on the ground. Sometimes enough to get a little greenish ground, to let a little greenish brown grass show itself for the first time in months. "It sure is beautiful out here. I wish I could see this place during the summer when everything's green and the flowers have bloomed," he said as he looked toward the sky. "In fact, I'd better start heading back home before I get my wish. It's already getting a little too warm for me." Mikey turned around to go home, but stopped dead in his tracks, his belly going ice cold. He looked to his left, his right, and then he spun completely around, trying to look everywhere at once. "I'm lost," he gasped, as he peered up to where the sun was starting to creep out from behind one of the few remaining clouds in the sky. A small trickle of sweat rolled down his cheek. "But wait, snowmen don't sweat. I'm starting to melt," Mikey exclaimed. "This is terrible. What if I never find my way home and I end up melting out here?" It was then that Mikey realized just how careless and irresponsible his decision had been to run off and leave his kids alone. He had only been thinking about how much fun he would have instead of how risky it would be and how his actions could affect his family. What would happen to his beautiful children if he never made it home to take care of them? Another trickle of sweat rolled down his cheek. Only this time, it wasn't more of him melting. It was a tear. "I can't let this happen to them," Mikey said with more than a hint of determination in his voice, and he started off at a brisk pace. Mikey walked and walked for hours. He went up and over several hills, through some trees, around ponds, and even crossed a small creek he was sure he'd never seen before. He looked for anything that seemed even the slightest bit familiar, but no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't find his way home. He was beginning to lose hope, but even worse, he was starting to lose a lot of himself. Water was streaming down his body as the sun slowly but surely melted more and more of him. Mikey sat down on a rock to rest. The sun was low on the horizon, reminded him he should be home making ice cube soup and snow peas for his kids' supper right now. At least it will be nightfall soon, and it will cool down enough to hold me together for a little while longer, he said to no one in particular. If only I knew which way to go. Mikey remained resting while he watched the sun set, the moon rise, and the twinkling of the stars that began to show in the sky. The stars only made him miss his babies even more. He remembered so many evenings, sitting outside with them, looking up to the sky, and he hoped there would be many more. As it cooled enough to be bearable, Mikey began walking again. He comforted himself by trying to remember the things his children had told him about the night sky, the things they had learned in school, about the many stages of the moon, where to look for the constellation called the Big Dipper, and how the brightest star in the sky was called the North Star, Mikey exclaimed. That's it. That's how I'll find my way home. His children had shown him that when he looked back toward their house at night, the North Star always seemed to be directly over it. Mikey started off in the direction of the North Star as fast as he could go. He kept up the pace for hours. He was exhausted, but he had to go on. He just had to. But what if this didn't work? What if he had been wrong? If that was the case, he didn't know what else to do. What else was there? He was beginning to lose hope and feel discouraged when he heard a faint sound. It had been so distant that it was hard to be sure what it was, but it seemed familiar. Could have possibly been just a bird, but who knows? He walked just a little further and listened carefully in case the sound repeated itself. After several long moments, it finally did. But that's definitely no bird, he said disbelievingly. Mikey hurried up the hill nearest him, and just as he reached the top, he heard the call again, only this time much more clearly. "Daddy, where are you?" he heard his oldest child yell. And from where he was now, he could also hear the younger of the two crying repeatedly, saying, "I want my daddy." It broke his heart to see his family so worried and sad, but it filled him with happiness that he was able to see them at all. "I'm right here, my sweethearts," Mikey screamed as he ran down the hill to finally embrace the children he'd so nearly lost. It was the happiest moment in his life, and he never wanted to lose it again. Mikey spent the rest of the night holding his children and telling them about his terrible adventure. He told them how scary it had been to be away for so long, and how it seemed like he'd never be home again. But most importantly, he told them how he'd made it back home only because of what he'd learned from them. It seemed as if Mikey still had a lot to learn, but right at the moment, he was as happy as he could ever be. He was home. That's the end of my story, and I hope you like it. I would have liked to put a little more enthusiasm into reading it for you, but honestly, it's hard for me to read it without crying. So, parts of it were difficult for me to write, and even more difficult to read out loud. So, but the message I'm trying to send is an important one, and I've done some things that are wrong, and those things have caused me to be away from you. But I need you to know that being away from you was never my intention. I just had some problems in my life that I handled in the wrong way, and none of it was your fault. So to my girls, I'd like to say that the adventure that I'm on right now is a terrible one, and I have to finish it alone, but I'm no longer lost. Each of you are my stars that I follow every night and I dream about every day. And while I still have a long way to go, I know that someday I'll find my way home. I love you, each of you, as much as the other, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and know that I'm thinking of you every day. I love you guys and I miss you. Goodbye.